My main nightmare when I was a kid was Rumpelstiltskin.
Yes.
Who you could argue is a shrunken, wrinkled goblin. Shrunkle goblin? Is that what you said?
Shrunkle goblin.
Hello, welcome to Guides to the Unknown. I'm Kristen.
And I'm her brother, William.
And tonight we are going to tell some of your stories about GTTUS happenings in your lives.
Yeah, it's the end of the year. It is the final episode of Guide to the Unknown for the year 2019.
That's right, for the decade.
For the decade. Oh my God. A culmination.
Make it grand.
My God. We've been farming your stories.
Yes.
We've been asking for you to send in your experiences with the paranormal. Many of you did it. We're going to read a bunch of them right now.
That's right. Before we get into that, I'm just going to tell you that you can find us in this decade and beyond at GTTU Pod everywhere on social media. If you pledge $4 or more to us, I always do that at patreon.com/GTTUpod. First of all, you're helping support the show, but also you get a bunch of bonus material, which rules. And I think that's it.
Yeah, that's it. Let's just jump right into it. I'm pumped about this.
Yeah.
All right. So this first story comes from Sarah, and they say, this happened at Fairview Cemetery in Liberty up by Kansas City. It's next to William and Jewel College. Back in 2005, a small group of friends and I went to a Kansas City, Missouri cemetery. For the life of me, I cannot think of the name of it. To do some research and investigation for a digital video editing project for our graphics class. When we pulled into the cemetery, it was a bright, cheerful, sunny day. That changed after we were there only like 5 minutes. It was only 1 p.m., but it looked like midnight.
I love that. I actually love days like that where it all of a sudden, I've never experienced where it's like midnight.
Right.
But I love a dark day where it seems like it shouldn't be that dark.
Well, also, what if it's always raining at that cemetery? Even if you're standing across from the street from it, it might seem like a sunny day, but the second you set foot on those grounds, rains.
Right, you go past some sort of threshold.
Yeah. It was such a drastic change that we almost just got back in the car and left. Even though there was an eerie feeling, all of a sudden we decided to stay. We walked for a little bit, taking a few pictures here and there, when we noticed a random headstone way off by the fence, all by its lonesome. Having no idea why one random headstone would be so far away from everything else, we decided to walk that way. Well, we tried to walk that way. As we stepped into the grass off the pavement, all 4 of us got like 3 scratches across the back of our legs.
That is so weird.
That's a swipe. 3 scratches is 3 fingers.
Yeah, right.
It's like slice.
And for it not to be like, I'm assuming that there weren't brushes that they were, or bushes that they were walking by or whatever. Like they crossed over onto grass and got 3 scratches.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah. That means what? A demon trying to prevent them from getting to the headset? Maybe a helpful ghost trying to stop them from getting into danger.
Maybe he's like, look, get scared. I'll scare you a little bit, but it's for the greater good. It's so that you run away.
Exactly. Yeah. After that, we ran our asses to the car as fast as we could. As soon as we left the cemetery, the sun came back out. See?
This is a very strange experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they crossed over the threshold from the cemetery and then all of a sudden the sun is out. Like it's only dark within the confines of the cemetery.
They're back in our dimension.
Right.
Still have no idea whose headstone it was. I, for one, will never go back to find out.
Yeah, because if they get any closer, who knows what happens? You get 3 scratch marks. You just step on the grass. If you get closer, does the violence increase?
That's interesting. Yeah,
You know?
It's almost like a dog shock collar or something. If you start going in that direction, it's going to hurt more and more, so you better back off.
Yeah, it's like an invisible fence.
Maybe that's why the headstone is all alone over there. They've tried to bury more people, but whenever they go to dig a grave close to it, they get hurt and scared and they have to run away.
Or maybe demons somehow have arranged this headstone, somehow move the actions of other people to get this headstone isolated so that it can hurt people. Like if people dare to go closer, it's like, okay, great. And to get to the headstone, they have to make that big walk across all this space. So during their walk, they can get more and more hurt and the demon can get more and more jollies.
Yeah, they get more and more blood. As your blood seeps down onto the grass of the graveyard, it sinks into the soil and the dead can feast.
Right. I think we just solved it, Sarah.
I think that's definitely what it was now.
Yeah, for sure. You don't even need to know whose grave that is. We just laid out the rest of the story for
Following the logic of Chrissy, we came up with a cool idea, therefore it's true.
Yeah. I re-listened to that from last week. I decided not to like harp on it, but I didn't think that was actually true. I was trying to like yes and it, but when I was listening again, I was annoyed. I'm like, you know that I don't think that this is the fact.
It's just the way you made it sound that you came up with what you thought was a good idea, and then all of a sudden that was it. All right. Anyway, all right, let's get this story going from Marshall.
Okay.
I was visiting my best friend who lives in a small mountain town in North Carolina. We always encounter weird things, and I swear he's a magical person. Or cursed. I can't decide.
Either or.
So we're hanging out having a good time when we decide to go stargazing. It was a clear summer night with a faint breeze. We ended up laying down on top of a large hill, away from any light pollution, when I see this odd little light moving around in all types of strange directions.
This sounds lovely so far. I would love to go stargazing in an area without light pollution, laying down a hill, slight breeze.
But when you see the zigzag,
I know.
I think Will-o'-the-Wisp immediately. He's trying to drown me in a bog.
Lead you somewhere, right?
Yeah, the worst substance to drown in.
Absolutely. So sludgy.
What's the best substance to drown in?
Water.
All right, I guess so. It's moving at speeds that don't seem possible, shooting across the sky with ease. Very different from an airplane, or any light I've ever seen in the night sky. I didn't say anything about the light to my friend, and it disappeared. A few minutes later, it's back again. This time changing size and brightness, as if coming in closer and shooting back out again. Finally, I began to ask my friend if he had seen it, but he cut me off before I could even finish asking. Yes, and I saw it the first time too. I was wondering if that was my imagination, he said. The light was definitely confusing, but there was something else that kept catching my eye. There were certain times while staring at the stars when this strange pattern would faintly become visible. The best way I can explain it is that it was almost like a holographic rainbow-colored grid covering the sky. This grid was kind of shaped like honeycombs, all interlocking with each other and spanning across the sky like a sheet. I've never seen anything like it before, and I doubt you ever would in a place with light pollution.
Have you heard of, or can you visualize something like that?
Yes.
What, do you know what that's from?
Cabin in the Woods.
Okay.
There is a force field that surrounds the area in Cabin in the Woods that is invisible unless something interacts with it.
Right. I could picture that sort of thing, but I couldn't figure out where I was thinking of it from. It might have been that.
It's almost like a Star Wars kind of force field.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
So somebody has to make that
and or
field.
Hunger Games?
Sure. Yeah, they're like in a big dome.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But I almost thought that was glass. Was that invisible?
It might have been. No, I don't know. I don't know. But I feel like there may have been something kind of similar to that.
Yeah. Thinking we saw enough strange stuff for one night, we decided to go inside and watch Netflix. We're sitting on the couch watching some weird TV show about this treasure hunter who tries to find historic artifacts. I remember watching this modern Indiana Jones wannabe walking through these catacombs and taking a turn around a corner, and out of the corner of my eye, I see my friend's cat jump onto the kitchen counter, walk to the other side, and curl up in a ball to lay down. Suddenly, my eyes got very heavy, and it felt like I nodded off for half a second, kind of like a long blink. It's weird.
Yeah.
When my eyes opened back up, I was watching the exact same sequence of events happen all over again, literally as if rewatching the last 10 seconds I had just experienced. The artifact hunter walked through catacombs, turned around the same corner, my friend's cat jumped up on the counter, walked across, and curled into a ball. I was a bit creeped out, but I'm starting to think maybe I'm just tired and not in the right frame of mind. Then I hear my friend say, "Whoa, déjà vu." And my heart immediately sank.
Yeah, like what the hell is going on here? Honeycombs in the sky, catacombs on TV.
Whoa.
Déjà vu you, déjà vu me.
Oh. Whoa, I just got a chill up my spine. That's so scary.
I am good at this stuff.
Honeycombs in the sky, honey crisp in my tummy. I turn to him and say, "What do you mean? What happened?" And he responded, "I closed my eyes for half a second and suddenly rewatched the last 10 seconds of my life repeat itself. I cannot even explain to you the shiver that went down my spine. I was creeped beyond belief, and I couldn't believe this all took place on the same night. I don't get freaked out easily, but I did not sleep well that night. I spent the majority of my sleepless nights scrolling through the internet trying to find any explanation or similar experiences. I have had many strange experiences since then that I can't explain, but I feel like this was the one that opened me up to the world of unexplainable events."
Very weird.
Very UFO-y, right?
Yeah.
A little bit of lost time.
Right.
stuff in the sky.
Right. I mean, maybe that thing wasn't like we were talking about or reflecting on some sort of screen or glass keeping us in. What if that was a UFO craft or something, and their technology makes it kind of chameleon with the sky, but he caught kind of like a shimmer of it or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, possibly. What is the lost time thing with UFOs? Usually it's that
there are lots of things about lost time that are unexplained, but they're usually connected to, I think of it connected to X-Files.
Right, exactly.
So I don't know exactly. I don't think there's like a straight line prescriptive thing between them.
True. But usually the way that lost time is represented is like, oh, I woke up and I feel like 10 seconds have passed, but meanwhile it's been 3 days.
Right.
That kind of lost time. This is repeating time. This is regaining time.
Yes, that's true. You're right. It's like the opposite of lost time.
Is Marshall 10 seconds older than the rest of us?
And his friend.
I
guess so.
The answer is definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
They got to repeat.
Okay.
Imagine what they could do with that.
Exactly.
Such power.
Use your 10 seconds.
Yeah, use them wisely.
In the future, we'll all get our own 10 seconds of rewound time. This next story comes to us from Alexander. Hey, Alexander. I've been talking to him. In my late teens, I started traveling with a Renaissance festival. My first stop was at the Maryland Renaissance Festival. I took a Greyhound.
I forgot you say words like that weird. Renaissance. This came up on the show once before. There was some other word where it's an S, but you say it like a Z.
Renaissance.
Yeah, Renaissance.
I took a Greyhound out of there with a couple of friends from Denver and landed in Gambrills, Maryland, a couple of towns over from the fair. It's pretty much a strip mall surrounded by deeply wooded neighborhoods. Our boss had a piece of property he would let his employees stay on, a 2-story house that resembled a haunted brick in the middle of the woods of off a busy highway. It affectionately received the nickname of the Moldy House from my friends and me. Great place to stay. I'll be sleeping in the Moldy House again.
The Moldy House, right.
I wonder why I have so many headaches.
Yeah.
The reason might shock you. It was filthy with black mold, but we were young and it was a free place to live, so we became the Moldy Kids.
I'm shocked.
Oh boy. If you hadn't guessed by now, the Moldy House was haunted. Every dog that moved in would have strange reactions to the house. One of the most disconcerting things was the sound of a knock on the door in a doorway that had a sheet hung where the door used to be. There was a mysterious brown stain in the main bedroom. Brown mold. Yeah. Strange noises, smells. Haunted stuff.
Right.
Then there were the dreams. A shadowy figure would come to all the residents while we slept. Our roommate, Mama Kathy, who, fun fact, played the shotgun-wielding mother of Ben Affleck in the movie Dazed and Confused, told us, of course, that's the Shadow Man. He's been here for a long time.
All matter of fact.
Oh, yeah, that's just the Shadow Man. Yeah,
you meant the Shadow Man.
Oh, yeah, the guy that comes to visit us while we're all asleep?
Shadow Man.
Yeah, Shadow Man. Yeah. Do you know the person who knocks on the curtains? We don't know what that is, but whatever.
Could be Shadow Man.
Could be. Who knows? Back home again the week before I left to head back to Maryland, I was getting my affairs in order and stepped out onto my front porch to have a smoke. I heard 2 noises. One was the yipping of foxes, and the other was an awful noise, like some sort of animal being killed. Turned out, it was an animal being killed. Our family cat Zipper usually joined me outside for my nighttime cigarettes, and he was nowhere to be found. So I did what any of us would do, and I tried to chase him down. I looked around the neighborhood calling Zipper's name. After a couple of days of hopeful wishing that he would come home, that it was some other neighborhood cat getting eaten by the foxes, I gave up hope. I was really, really sad. I didn't even get to say goodbye. Jump back to Maryland. I was a skeptic to say the least. I hadn't seen the Shadow Man. I just thought it was some spooky nonsense. I shared the upstairs bedroom with 2 other guys, all of us with single mattresses on the floor. Moldy kids rule. I slept in the middle because I was the youngest, and I guess that's just how things went. I'm not much of a dream haver, unfortunately, but one night, just like everybody else at the Moldy House, I had a dream with the Shadow Man. It was the most vivid dream I've ever had in my life. So vivid, in fact, that to this day, I can't tell you whether or not I actually was asleep. I raised my head, disturbed by something, and looked up at the doorway to our room. The door opened soundlessly, and the figure of the Shadow Man filled the archway. I remember feeling goosebumps, which is really strange because I don't think I've ever felt that sensation in a dream before. That's interesting.
Yeah.
To catch something that you're not sure if you've experienced in it.
Right.
Like goosebumps is a very specific feeling.
Yeah. It's very physical.
Yeah.
But you know what? I mean, not to discount its experience, but like, in a dream when you really have to pee?
Sure.
Or whatever?
Yeah, that's true.
Like you can feel that.
Well, but then maybe he was having goosebumps in real life.
Yes, you're right, because you're physically having to pee and that's why you feel it. You're right, maybe you had goosebumps in real life.
Yeah, no good.
It actually makes it scarier.
I'm about to cry when something brushes my hand, which is hanging off the bed. I look and see my dearly departed Zipper, nuzzling his head into my palm. I remember feeling his fur, wondering if I was dreaming, and then knowing for certain this was Zipper, because it was exactly how soft his fur was. He stretched, climbed up onto my chest, and proceeded to purr with lazily closed eyes as I petted him. I did this for a minute or two, just glad to be reunited with this handsome little guy. I blinked, and he was gone. I look up into the door, and the Shadow Man is gone. All that's left is the tears in my eyes from the gratitude of finally being able to say goodbye to Zipper. Thing is, I was awake. It's hard to tell. I'm sure it was a dream, but I could swear to you that it all took place with my head still raised. It leaves me questioning to this day. Was it a dream? By the way, not a skeptic anymore. A year after this experience, I came home with my then girlfriend, now wife, who is an empath as well as a conduit for all things supernatural. Being a couple, we got the downstairs bedroom to ourselves. She had so many more dreams than any of us living there, which made sense because she spent the most time there while the rest of us were at work. I guess her and the Shadow Man bonded, whether she knew about it or not. One night, she dreamed about living in the house with strangers, a woman and 2 small children. She went through several life events with this dream family until she looked down to see big manly hands where hers should be and realized she was seeing the Shadow Man's life.
Whoa.
She was in the Shadow Man's body, looking through his eyes. This was years ago, so the details of the dream are fuzzy. She knows that he got into trouble with gambling addiction, and that had something to do with the last part of her dream. In the end, she looks down to see herself bleeding out as the Shadow Man, and falls onto the ground in the very room we're sleeping in. In the morning, she told us all about the dream. When one roommate asked where the Shadow Man had been killed, she looked down, and all of our eyes were drawn to that mysterious brown stain on the carpet. Thing is, after she had this dream, all of the Shadow Man dreams stopped. It was like he just wanted people to know what happened. He was a really friendly ghost, and I like to think that my wife played a big part in laying his spirit to rest.
Pretty interesting.
That's a hell of a story.
Yeah, totally.
So even for Alexander, it does. Even for Alexander, the idea that his cat came back to him, is this house, or is maybe the Shadow Man somebody who's able to connect people with wayward spirits?
Yeah.
They say that ghosts have unfinished business and stuff. Maybe Zipper just needed to come by to check on his master one last time.
Maybe.
And maybe the Shadow Man just needed somebody to know what happened to him.
Right.
Especially if this house was in the middle of nowhere.
Right. There aren't a lot of chances to tell people that because not that many people come around.
Exactly.
Really. Or maybe people who aren't sensitive enough to feel it the way that Alex's wife is.
Yes. It took the right person who's able to actually see it all.
Right.
For it to matter.
Right. And for it to then stop.
That's wild.
Basically. I know.
Yeah. It also makes me think of like the Rustin Parr house from Blair Witch.
Yeah.
I would never sleep in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, too scary.
Maybe I'm too old now, but I can't imagine doing any stuff like that anymore. I think when I was younger, I could probably have been convinced.
Yeah, for sure. Like this is a very I think he said that he was in late high school when this happened.
Yeah.
Like this is a very late high school kind of thing. Like going to sleep in the moldy house and the moldy kids and everything. Like I totally know people who
1,000%. Yeah,
would do stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, now I like my comforts.
I need light. I need a TV.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's
no, thank you.
No, I'm cool.
Yeah,
I'm cool.
me too.
Everyone. I ain't no moldy kid.
No, me neither.
More power to him.
Yeah.
All right. Our next story comes to us through Nathan. One night I went with some friends to this little unknown graveyard called Galloway Cemetery. Why do I know that name?
I don't know.
That resided off a major road, but always had the gate locked, so you couldn't just drive into it. We had to park a ways away and trek up the hill at night. We weren't planning on committing any vandalism or anything, we just wanted a spook, and were interested in the history of the graveyard, but not sure who the caretakers were. Getting to the top of the hill, we saw it was a very small graveyard, with approximately 20 or so graves residing up there. Out of my group of 6 friends, including me, 2 of them stayed behind a ways before the entrance because they were scared. Myself and the other 3 looked around. but felt a general sense of someone watching us. There was only one house nearby at the bottom of a hill, but it couldn't see us where we currently were. Suddenly, one of my friends said they felt a lot of pressure all of a sudden, like they were being very tightly squeezed. They felt uncomfortable and decided to wait for our other friends near the entrance. We didn't stay for too much longer, but one of my other friends, who's a skeptic, later said they used their flashlight to scan the woods and could have sworn they saw a person move behind a tree, but didn't say anything at the time because they weren't sure exactly what they saw. So that's a person that, like, ducks back behind a tree?
Yeah, they've been seen, so now they're gonna... Right.
Oh, I should lean behind the tree so they don't see me anymore. And then the person with the flashlight sees it happen and is like, huh.
I'm probably crazy.
Yeah, I bet I didn't see that person.
Yeah.
I bet I didn't see you.
Right. I'm sure you don't want to believe that you saw them.
Don't worry, I didn't see you.
All good.
We left and shared our seemingly underwhelming experiences. Cut 2. The next night, I laid in bed trying to sleep when 2 strange things happened. The first, I have no way of debunking to myself. My parents have 2 small dogs, both of which slept with them. I always closed my door at night, so it was impossible for either one of them to get into my room. I awoke to the sound of sniffing around the perimeter of my bed, like a dog was sniffing around, pacing the edge of the bed.
It's so visceral. Like, I can completely imagine that, and think how creepy that would be if you know there isn't an animal in there.
Yes.
That's so scary.
So scary. And this is a really weird point, but one of the first things it makes me think of is like, the way that we typically think of threats from other people is, oh, they're watching me, they're coming at me, they're raising their hands, they're reaching for something.
Yeah.
You never really think of the sniff.
No, you don't.
You don't think of the threat of the smell.
Yes.
And I'm not sure there's all that much difference sound-wise between me going...
Yeah,
and
right.
a dog doing it.
No.
It's not like you can be like, oh, that's a human sniff.
No, probably not. It's probably just that, dogs do it more rapidly, typically,
yeah,
but
true.
certainly a human could replicate that if there's
Yes.
something wrong with them, which there probably is, if they're sniffing all along your bed frame anyway.
Yeah, he should have just popped out of bed and gone,
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah, what's your deal?
Hey, what's your major malfunction? It's so freaky.
I know.
Okay. It was completely dark, so I couldn't see. I laid with my eyes open, realizing it wasn't either of our dogs, but just in case it was, I sat up and called each of their names. Bold move to make any sound in that environment.
I think I'd just try to play possum, basically, and pretend I was sleeping until
1000%.
something forced me not to.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Play possum, maybe play skunk.
Yes.
Anything to stink them away.
Yeah, if they're sniffing...
Yeah.
I'll give you something to sniff.
Yeah,
and then you're going to run away with your tail between your legs. Doggy or not. Yeah.
I figured if they were somehow in my room, they'd jump up on my bed. The sniffing stopped, and nothing came up on the bed. A few seconds later, my bedroom door shook violently, like someone was pulling the doorknob a bunch. So then I thought maybe if it was our dogs, they wanted out. So I got up to feel around in the dark and opened the door. No dogs anywhere. In fact, one was sleeping already at the top of the stairs next to me. I looked down the hallway to my right, which is normally lit well by a nightlight, but the very end was pitch black. I waited for my eyes to adjust because normally I could see the end clearly. But even with the nightlight on, it was pitch black. I felt a sense of dread, stepped back, and closed my door, took a Tylenol PM.
I thought that was funny.
And tried to pretend nothing happened. This is an ad for Tylenol.
Yeah.
When the ghosts are sniffing around.
Viral marketing is really
taking
creative.
Off. Are there ghosts sniffing around? Tylenol PM
can help you with that.
It's so funny.
I know.
And try to pretend nothing happened. I was spooked by that whole experience, but nothing else ever happened prior to or after that. I chalked it up to a bad dream. I met with my group of friends a few days later, and I brought up what happened. They all, with the exception of the 2 who originally waited at the entrance, sat there in shock. 2 of them said they experienced several nightmares the last few nights, almost like a sleep paralysis experience, which neither of them had had before. I do not ever want to have sleep paralysis.
No, me neither. I've never had. We have a few stories about sleep paralysis incoming.
Really? Oh, it sounds like a nightmare. My last friend that had seemingly seen something in the woods had sudden activity in their house too. However, they didn't just have the one-night experience like I did. They said there was a lot of unexplained sound in their house, and a few times had a similar experience like I did with my hallway. They said the most alarming was when they were walking around in their house, and suddenly their brother's bedroom door slammed shut as they walked by it. Their brother was not home at the time. Sadly, it's a pretty boring conclusion after this. That's not sad.
No.
You want it to get boring.
God, yeah.
You want things to get real boring real fast.
Boring life is usually a pretty good life.
Absolutely. The activity in their house died down to nothing, and my other two friends were able to sleep normally. I never had anything else happen besides that experience.
Well, again, thank God.
Yeah.
And honestly, what he experienced at home is so crazy. It made me forget that this story started with a bunch of friends in a cemetery.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That's scary enough, just
Yes.
what happened at home. I forgot that it had origins with like a bunch of people.
Yeah.
So it's nuts that they all ended up experiencing like shades of each other's
Have you had...
experiences.
Right. Now, you and I have visited several places. We went to the Devil's Tree.
Yeah.
We went to the Devil's Tower. Mary Ellis's grave. We did a bunch of ghost hunting.
Yeah.
We used a Ouija board recently.
Yeah.
Have you had anything?
No, not anything scary like that. No.
Unexplained? Nothing. You texted me before about something.
Yeah, nothing like that, I was saying.
Yeah.
This isn't even exclusive to the Ouija board or anything. I think maybe it happened one time after we did the Ouija board, but I think it happened a couple of times before that. I've gotten a couple of perfumey smells out of nowhere.
You're the sniffer.
I am the sniffer.
You're the sniffer. Don't mind me. It's just me, the sniffer.
Sorry, Nathan.
Yeah, my bad.
Yeah.
Didn't know you didn't want that.
Right. I thought you liked that. But yeah, no, I've had like a little bit of a perfumey waft here and there.
Yeah.
And I've tried to trace its origin. I don't know what the hell it is. I know for sure one time I was just lying on the couch watching TV and then I smelled something that was like perfumey. And I was like, what is that? And I was wearing a sweater and I lifted up and I smelled that. I smelled my deodorant. Like, I don't know what it was. It was something that was like not a familiar smell to me either. It's not like I was like, and it was grandma's perfume.
Right.
It was just like something. And then another one of the times I was either coming in or going outside. Cause I remember I was like at the door and same deal. And I don't remember. So it's not a good complete, it's not like a scripty ghost story.
Well, maybe it's still in progress.
I don't remember if it was the same as that other smell.
Yeah.
I don't know what, but again, I was like, I smell something again. And then same deal. I smelling stuff all around me. I was like, it's not on me. And I thought the first time too, but I was like, ooh, ghost smells are a thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Weird. I really haven't been able to find a source. I'm not sure.
Weird.
I like it.
You really do?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, it's cool to think about. I mean, I like thinking about all this stuff. And this is something I really can't explain yet, which
I guess
makes
as long
it
as
seem
it's
even
not
like
obtrusive.
cooler.
Right.
No, it's cool. I seriously haven't found an explanation for it. I'm happy to find one.
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder if it could be something.
It's an unusual one to have, like
supernaturally.
an olfactive phantom.
Yeah, I've never ever had that before. And it's been like I told you, like I think 2 or 3 times in the last maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So in our bedroom, we've got blackout curtains.
Yeah.
And 2 of them are hung on the windows behind my dresser. And maybe about a week ago, Allie asked me if I have been opening the curtains. And the answer is very easy. It's of course not. I want it to be as dark as possible.
Right, dank.
And she goes, because I have moved the curtains. I just knocked a bunch of stuff over. Yeah, I just moved stuff.
Are you sure you didn't move the curtains? Well, it
Kristen,
seems like you love moving stuff.
I didn't do that.
Oh my God.
That wasn't me. But no, she goes, yeah, because she has had to fix them several times. And she was pointing at them and they were like halfway opened.
Yeah.
And so I said no. And then we agreed, let's close them again entirely, black out the room, and just be very aware, because like maybe subconsciously or you know, any number of things that you do about your day. Like you ever walk through a door of your house and subconsciously lock it?
Yeah, totally.
I'm
You could just
constantly
not
locking
notice
doors
that
without
you're
paying attention to what I'm doing. So she was like, let's both pay attention to see if we are the ones closing the curtains.
Yeah, just without thinking about it.
And
Or opening.
they have not been opened.
Yeah.
Now,
Okay.
maybe that's because we're both being very aware of our interactions with the curtain now.
Right.
Or
Right.
maybe that was something that a ghostie was doing to peek out the window from inside or peek in the window from outside.
Yeah.
And now they're like, well, if I do it again, they're going to catch
Well,
me.
the jig is up
The
now.
jig is up.
They're
I heard
onto
them-
me.
I heard them talking about
Yeah,
it, so I got to
yeah.
stop.
Weird.
I don't know.
Huh.
Yeah. I don't know.
Curious.
Okay, next story from
Okay.
Kelly. Even as I'm writing this, I'm not sure that I'll send it. The experience that I'm about to share is still fresh, and quite frankly, I'm still sorting it out in my head. Being a fan of horror, paranormal, and anything else just plain weird and strange, I'm aware of sleep paralysis being a thing. But up until 5 o'clock yesterday morning, I had never experienced it. I was in the middle of a normal dream, surrounded by friends and family, including my deceased father, which is always such a heartwarming and pleasant experience because I miss him dearly. Everything was happy, and it was the kind of dream where you don't care if you're dreaming. You're just content to stay a while. I will disclose that I am a lucid dreamer, and so I usually know that I'm dreaming and have the ability to, at times, control where a dream takes me and how long I stay. Also keep in mind that I'm a married woman, so my husband was sleeping right next to me, but he is such a deep sleeper I could scream in his face and he'd never wake up. I kind of relate to that. So it was no surprise that he didn't react when suddenly something caused our bed to move around me as if someone was walking on it. I could feel it being pushed down around me as if with a heavy weight of a person. Before I could react, it was as if someone put their knees on my hips to pin me down with all of their strength. I was laying on my right side, and my left arm was up over my head and also being held down at the wrist by something with a very strong and tight grip. As soon as I had felt the bed move, I opened my eyes, staring straight ahead at the covers and pillow. But I was unable to turn my head, and the only thing I could see in my peripheral was more covers and a fluffy unicorn I use as a second pillow. I was terrified. I could not move, I could not scream, which I tried desperately to do, all the while feeling this person or thing on top of me and hearing nothing but my own panic screaming in my head that I was about to die. Finally, after a long fight with my vocal cords, I managed to squeak out a very weak, "Help me," and suddenly whatever had pinned me down was gone.
Man.
However, I could still feel the sensation of where they had been holding me, my hips still warm and my wrist aching and tingly. Laying still, I tried to catch my breath as I assessed the things around me. The TV was still on and emitting a soft glow through the room, and my husband was still at my back, facing the other way, and sleeping as if nothing had happened. He had not moved the whole time, not even when I screamed. I was too afraid to move even at that point, but I knew if I could if I wanted to. Part of me wanted to jump up out of bed and wake him up, but another part of me was still confused if what I had experienced was real or not. And if it was, that meant there was someone in our room. Were they standing at the foot of the bed waiting? How had they gotten in? Where did they go? What did they want? Retelling it might seem like the whole experience took several minutes, but I'm sure it was only seconds in total. Finally, after a couple of minutes, I was brave enough to check the time and take a peek at my surroundings, which thankfully were not disturbed. Needless to say, I did not go back to sleep right away. The feeling of confusion and the heavy feeling followed me throughout the day, and even though I knew it was sleep paralysis and I had worked it all out in my head, I couldn't shake it. When it came time for bed again last night, I put off going to sleep as long as possible. I turned on Guide to the Unknown, the Toynbee episode, because I'm still catching up on past shows.
Perk you right up.
Get a good Toynbee idea going.
Yeah.
And listened to that until I couldn't keep my eyes open. Thankfully, whatever it was did not pay me another visit or happen again. But it sure made me understand why, throughout time, people have claimed that aliens, ghosts, and demons have paid them a visit. Our minds are powerful, if indeed it was all in my mind. I'm still not 100% sure. I realize now why people are so adamant that something has happened to them. It was too real not to affect me. The only thing I had similar to this was years ago when I felt I had an out-of-body experience, or what some might call one. I felt my body float up to the ceiling and bump against it, and when I opened my eyes, I fell back to the bed. I'm sure I just rolled over against the wall my bed was pushed against at the time, but again, still not 100% sure on that one either. But that past experience is what gave me such an open mind to other people's stories, and one of the many reasons why I have always been interested in the paranormal. Thanks for taking the time to read this. I have written another account to share about experiences I had with ghost lights with my family. All 4 of us saw them. I've just been too shy to share.
Well, guess what? She got less shy since she sent that one, so I will be following up and finishing with her ghost light story
awesome.
today.
Because I was going to say, send that.
Yeah, she did.
But great. Okay, excellent. Yep. Yeah, I don't know. Out-of-body experience, sleep paralysis, any?
No.
Night terrors?
No, I have, nightmares every once in a while or whatever, but not like night terrors.
You still have nightmares?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know the last time I had a nightmare.
Yeah. I mostly don't have very good dreams.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I know. And sometimes they're especially bad.
I mostly have very nice dreams.
Oh, good for you.
I do. It's almost embarrassing. I talk in my sleep.
Yeah.
And Allie's recorded a bunch of them. I actually put them on youtube.com/talkbomb.
Yeah.
They're almost all about stuff like, I was trying to remember what the Little Mermaid calls a fork.
Right.
When she combs her hair with it. It's a dingle hopper.
Yeah.
And the Transformers movies I talked about. One time I talked about plantains and how they're not as sweet or as good as bananas.
I like plantains.
You like plantains?
Yep.
You hate bananas.
I hate bananas. They don't taste anything like bananas.
It's the
I'm not like
taste, not the
cracking
texture?
Yeah. And they're also firmer than bananas. I'm not cracking into a plantain like people eat bananas, but like plantain chips? Absolutely. Fried plantains? Sure. They're closer to the potato than to the banana. All right.
Moving on. Our next story comes from Carrie. I've only experienced one unexplainable event in my life. It was 1995. I was 20 and in college. I was a pretty untroubled person, happy at school and in my relationships. One night in April, I was in my room studying when I suddenly felt agitated to the point that I couldn't concentrate. I even paced the floor. I remember thinking, this isn't me. This isn't me. Confused and a little scared, I pulled out my poetry notebook and wrote, hoping to leave the disturbing sensation on the page. It seemed to work. The feeling lifted, and I resumed my evening. The next morning, we got the terrible news that my aunt had died by suicide. A hanging. Forgetting about all the events of the night before, we gathered with family to mourn. Months passed before I picked up my poetry notebook again to write a sappy love poem. I reread the previous poem, and my memory of those terrible feelings flooded my mind. The poem had a different tone, a different voice than any of my other poems, and I remembered thinking that I didn't feel like myself that night. With a jolt, I noticed the date of the poem, the same April night that my aunt took her life. With new insight, I read all of the references the poem made to despair, no way out, icy cold fingers encircling my neck. It was all there on the page. I don't typically indulge in supernatural leanings, but I can't explain this except to believe that I somehow received my aunt's pained energy in those desperate moments. I hope that in some small way she received my loving energy in return, and it offered a bit of comfort. I don't know if she sought me out, or if her energy just flailed outward, and I somehow tuned into it. I also don't know why the feeling dissipated after I wrote the poem. Perhaps I just regained focus and got out of that strange headspace, or perhaps she felt heard and moved on. In any case, that's my one potentially paranormal experience. That is a very, very interesting story.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's horrible to find out that somebody that you care about has taken their own life.
Yeah.
But if we're going to view this from a paranormal angle, not to make, I don't want to be gross and speculate about things baselessly, but it is interesting. And I like Carrie's suggestion that maybe there could have been a swap.
Right.
Her aunt's,
like energy
went her way, and maybe Carrie's otherwise peaceful, happy energy went the other way.
Right.
And it was a sacrifice, almost a swap to let her aunt feel some sort of
like peace
sensation of contentment before the end.
Yeah.
And then maybe even the act of getting it out in her poetry book was making sure that it didn't stay within her.
Yeah. That's true.
Right?
That's true. Yeah, that's interesting to think
somewhere,
about.
So leave it on the page.
Yeah, that's interesting to think about.
Yeah, that's a very fascinating story. Thank you very much for sending that.
Yeah, thank you, Carrie.
And I'm very sorry that happened to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what a fascinating what a fascinating story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So now I'm going to read the rest of the stories for the night. William, you can rest that beautiful voice box.
Here we go.
Okay.
Me.
Ma. Okay, so this is from Megan, who learned about us from hearing us shouted out on the Acquired Taste podcast.
Hey,
I know.
love the Acquired Taste podcast.
Me too. So thank you for hopping on over and listening. And thank you, Bethany and Kathleen, for talking about us.
Hell yeah, shouts out. Shouts out. What?
Shouts out. Now, I want to give a mild content warning for this one.
Sure.
There's a little sexual assault stuff in here.
Oh.
It's not like, well,
yeah.
It's not going to be like horrendous or anything, but I just want to mention it. She said, "Let me preface this by saying that I am a believer in ghosts, both evil and good-natured, and I'm a believer in ghosts making contact through dreams. I have some other stories about nice things my relatives have shared with me from beyond this world through dreams, but that's not this story. I had this dream a few months ago, and it's still very vivid in my memory, more than any other dream I've had. In the dream, I was asleep in my bedroom back at my parents' house. I woke up around 3 a.m. in dream time, also the witching hour, a little strange, and there was a ghost old man standing by the door. I assumed he was the older man that passed away in my parents' house before they bought it. We never really saw any ghost activity, but every now and then, something would make a noise or fall, and we'd say it was Ghost Bob and go on with our day. In the dream, I had seen him and not been afraid. It was just Ghost Bob after all. So I got up and went over to him. He smiled at me, but I could tell something felt sort of off about him. Almost like it wasn't him, but someone who looked like him and was trying to act like him.
That's weird.
No, go ahead.
Sorry. That's weird too, considering that they didn't know.
Mm-hmm. I know that she had like familiarity with... I wonder if it's just like dream familiarity.
Well, even,
you know what I mean?
But I even think the sense of knowing, the sense of just somehow being aware of it is the same as it being true in like a dream space. So like,
yeah, totally.
This guy looks like the person that we refer to as like the Ghost Bob.
Yeah.
But I can tell that's not really him. He's masquerading as Ghost Bob.
Yeah.
Like,
there are layers to that.
I don't even know how I know, but I know that's not him. He's putting on a false face.
Yeah. Totally. So she said that kind of sensation was similar to black-eyed children attempting to act like normal children. So even if it's like a kid you don't know, you're still like, well, it's not a normal kid though. My instincts are telling me this is wrong. Right. He reached out his arm to, what I assumed, touch my shoulder lovingly. But instead, he grabbed my right boob with such intent that I knew it was not Bob. I was horrified. I'd never felt anything like this before. I could feel this rush of panic deep in my chest. This is what convinced me it was not a dream, for I'd never felt anything so intense and scary as this in my nightmares. Then suddenly he vanished and I was back in bed. I got the feeling immediately that he had broken some sort of rule or crossed some sort of boundary and was in big trouble. I should hope so. He touched my boob. I look up, and where he had stood now stands another being who I swear looks like Ted Danson.
What?
This is very strange, I know, and I knew it wasn't him. It was merely another ghost or being disguising themselves with a face that I would know and that it knew would comfort me. I'm a big fan of The Good Place.
I was about to say, he plays a demon on TV right now.
Right. I'm a big fan of The Good Place, so this makes sense that a ghost would choose him to impersonate. I know, it's...
That's so odd.
I know. But I know that I've heard of the idea of ghosts presenting themselves to you as people or things that are comforting to you.
Sure.
So like even it must be in a story or a movie or something where they're like overtly like, I'm coming to you in the form of your grandma.
That was a big thing in the movie What Dreams May Come.
Oh, okay. Oh, I've never seen that.
No?
No.
It would probably destroy you. That movie would crush you.
It would wreck me. Yeah. I remember you having it. I would never.
It would stomp on you like a bug.
It completely would.
I can't tell you how many times I've seen that movie.
I know. I would be on the bottom of its shoe. So the Ted Danson ghost was attempting to comfort me, and I was trying to explain to him what was happening. I could barely move, and suddenly it was hard to talk. I managed to get back to the doorway where the door was wide open, but I could not pass through. I continued trying to talk until I managed to get out a sentence. Suddenly, it was as if the barrier was broken around my door, and I could easily pass through to the living room. When I walked into the room, there was another man waiting for me. He was wearing a military uniform, sort of like Garland Briggs from Twin Peaks, but he had a very military haircut like Jorgen von Strangle from Fairly Odd Parents.
What?
Strange comparison, I know, but that's what he looked like. I don't know who that is.
I don't know who that is. But Jorgen von Strangle.
What's going on Fairly Odd Parents?
Hell of a name.
Von Strangle. It was evident immediately to me that he was Ted Danson's boss. He told me he was very confused as to why I was able to talk to them because he tried to make it as hard as possible for me to talk to them. Like he put some sort of spell over me where it should have been nearly impossible for me to communicate with them. Apparently this meant that I have some more psychic abilities than most. Then I simply woke up and it was over. I do not believe it was just a dream. To me, it was all too real. I believe that I was contacted by the spirit world and something went wrong.
It was like it was not only like you were contacted by the spirit world. Mm-hmm. It's like you were contacted by like a horrible monster man.
Yeah.
And then the management came by.
Right. And they were like trying to like smooth things over or something.
We
like
understand that, you know, you had a horrible experience.
Right. And I think it's interesting that all of the management and all the people trying to like soothe her or whatever were all people recognizable to her that she liked. Right. So Ted Danson, Garland Briggs with a haircut like this other person, Jorgen von Strangle, who, if she doesn't like, she's at least familiar with. So it's like they're trying to present themselves as very familiar things to her, as opposed to this like fake ghost Bob, who first of all, she doesn't really know in the first place, but then there was another layer placed on top of him that made him even less familiar to her.
Absolutely.
So it's like they tried to flood her with familiarity afterward.
I'd like to point out that Bob is the bad guy from Twin Peaks.
Yes.
I think it's interesting that Major Garland Briggs became something of a dimension-shifting figure in that series. Mm-hmm. And of course, Ted Danson, we already mentioned, plays a demon on television.
Right. That's like, I don't know Jorgen von Strangle's deal, but if he's on Fairly Odd Parents, I think that's about fairy people. So maybe he's also playing with the realms.
Jorgen von Strangle is such a good name.
I know.
I'm sorry that I aged out of cartoons.
Yes, I know. Damn. Okay, so our next story is from
Jorgen von Strangle.
So the next story is from Aaron. My son is almost 4, and since he could talk, he's always said interesting things. I'll start out by saying he isn't in preschool or daycare, he's not allowed to watch anything that isn't age appropriate, and he doesn't have any access to be influenced by spooky stuff. The first time he creeped me out, he was about 2, waving at, quote, the green skeleton man in the kitchen, which is a hot spot for unexplained noises. I didn't keep it in here when she started out this email saying that she partially wrote in about this after hearing us talk about Charlie with the yellow ladies.
Yes, that's what I immediately thought of. My friend's son who claimed that he saw yellow ladies, I think screaming.
Maybe, I don't
Yellow
remember.
ladies screaming. So this 2-year-old saw a green skeleton.
And was waving at it. Green skeleton man in the kitchen.
What do you picture that to mean? That the bones of the skeleton were green, or is it emitting a green light?
Emitting a green light.
Emitting a green light.
Mm-hmm. What about you?
I think covered in moss and decay.
Ooh, I like it. So that happened in the kitchen, which she says is a hot spot for unexplained noises. The next time, he was 3 and we were both laying in my bed getting ready to sleep and talking about our day. He told me there's a man who was in the ground, came down from the sky, he lives on our house and is happy now. He said his name is Eric Boone. Unfortunately, no Google results.
Oh my
So specific.
God.
His name is Eric Boone?
His name is Eric Boone.
This is a 3-year-old who told her this.
He came to the ground, he landed on top of our house. At least he's happy now. My old pal Eric Boone.
This is awesome.
This is awesome. This is a reason to have children.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell me scary stuff. What are you tuned into, little kid?
Yeah. What haven't you phased out because you were like blinded by adult cynicism?
How can we get that back? How do we get rid of our adult cynicism?
I don't know.
We're in our 30s. How can we rewind the clock?
I think you maybe can. I feel like I have like less adult cynicism than some people do and than I used to. I think the more that you entertain these ideas, even as a thought experiment, be like, well, what if or whatever.
I entertain them a lot. I still feel like I'm full of cynicism.
Yeah, I mean, I
think I'm stuffed to the gills.
But like, I don't know. I guess I do a lot of like, well, what if? And like, maybe. And
True.
There are a lot of things in the world that are unexplained.
Yeah.
There are things that we accept as fine that are unexplained. They're like medical things that work and we don't know how they work, but we just let it happen. You know what
Yes.
I mean? Like, there's a lot of mystery in the world, and I like playing with that.
You know what I was thinking about the other day?
What?
It's so mundane, but just like on the tip of like accepting things as they are.
Yeah.
Why are vision and dental additional things to just medical coverage?
I don't know. It's all your body.
Are eyes not medical?
I guess because you have to be a specialist. Like, it's not like
So what? If you go to an ear, nose, and throat doctor, that's a specialist, but that's just covered by medical.
It is?
I don't know.
I don't think it is.
It is not?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know, but like, I think that
So what-
like
what's covered by medical?
Yeah, it's a crock. Don't get
Is
me
it really?
started. Yes. Insurance is horrible.
Huh.
It's horrible.
Now we could turn Guide to the Unknown into like a
Yeah.
like explaining things that are really complicated that I should know more
No,
about.
we can't because I can't explain it to you, but I don't think that going to an ear, nose, and throat person is covered by your regular medical.
Really?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But I will say, I guess when you become a doctor, you don't learn about the intricacies of the eye because that's almost its own little microcosm, insanely complicated
Sure.
thing.
I understand that.
So
But how come a vet can treat a pony and a goat?
I don't think they can, William. Do you think Dr. Spin is treating ponies? I don't think so.
I saw him fix a turtle. I don't know.
I don't think so.
Stupid.
When you said, here's another unexplained thing that we just accept, I thought you were going to tell me something like spooky or whatever. Nope.
No.
How come?
I was thinking about it the other day. I had to find my vision insurance card and I couldn't.
Yeah.
And I was like, why is this different?
Yeah, it's a little bunk.
Just make it the same thing.
I know.
Who cares?
I know. Ugh. Okay. So she continues. This summer, I was over at a friend's house and she had a guest over who was FaceTiming. He ran over to investigate, saw the other one person on the screen. I think she's saying her son ran over to investigate
Yeah.
and saw the other one person on the screen who we have both never met. Then asked where Toby was, ran away, and everyone was silent.
Toby.
I was confused until they told me that that was her dog who recently passed on.
Whoa. Toby is also the name of the ghost in Paranormal Activity, I think.
Oh, okay.
I think.
Maybe this kid's watching Paranormal Activity.
Maybe. Green Skeleton.
Oh.
The Green Skeleton and what was his name? Joe Gooby?
Eric Boone.
Eric Boone.
Joe Gooby.
I got the double O right in the last name.
Yes.
Boom. That is maybe one of the weirdest ones to me.
Yeah, it's so detailed.
They both, the skeleton and Eric Boone, each end kind of happy. The idea that he's waving at the skeleton.
Yeah.
The skeleton is
Yeah, the
not a
skeleton's
threat.
not
The
scaring
skeleton
him.
is a friend
Right.
or something.
Right.
And Eric Boone is happy now. He's happy now. He landed on a roof. He's happy now.
Yeah, thanks. Did he just land on a roof? I feel like, let me see. There's a man who's in the ground, came down from the sky. He lives in our house and is happy now.
Oh, he lives in our house. I
Yes.
think, okay, somehow I thought that it was he landed on our roof.
No,
he came
well, he came down from the sky. Yeah.
Right. He lives in our house and he's happy now.
Yeah.
Oh. Oh, now, you know what? Now I find that creepy again.
Yeah, it's all creepy
He lives in our house.
and is happy now. So,
Anyone saying he lives in our house,
right.
that will never be a good thing.
Of course
right?
not.
Yeah.
No. Lastly, this one needs a bit of backstory. My mom told me when I was younger that her first memory of a ghost was when she was still in a crib and saw the outline of a pirate man spinning around on a pedestal made out of a starry outline. That's
What?
awesome.
Trippy.
Yes. I was told this almost 20 years ago and haven't had a reason to speak of it since. This past holiday season, we stayed at my grandparents' house and I was woken up in the middle of the night. He told me he couldn't sleep because of the scary pirate man.
No way. This kid.
I know. Then this past week while visiting my grandparents, my son out of the blue said, "Hey, who's that?" And immediately the phone rang with no one on the other end.
What?
Something's going on with this kid.
Dude, foster that.
I know. Yeah. Nurture it.
Yes,
Seriously.
1,000%. I
Yeah,
love that.
I love that. Thank you, Aaron, and keep us posted. I would genuinely love to hear more.
Absolutely. I know a kid, I don't want to give away their identity.
Mm-hmm.
I know a kid who played Jason on the what's it called?
What?
When you have recess? Playground.
Yeah.
Playing Jason is playing tag.
Right.
Except whoever's it is Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
All this kid did for a while, I don't know if he still does it, is draw pictures of Jason Voorhees, the hockey mask, the machete, constantly.
And like at what age?
like 6.
Yeah.
But he's like an adorable kid. He's perfectly
He's
well
so
adjusted.
cute.
His
Yeah.
family is, everyone's taking care of everything.
Yeah, they're fine.
So it's not like he's, up late watching, TNT or
Right.
something like that. It's just he happened to see Jason Voorhees somehow. And like kids,
Who
he got
knows?
obsessed or something. But my thing was immediately like, hey, like, you don't really think of your kids' hobbies. You think like, oh, get this kid into playing baseball.
Yeah.
Oh, get this kid into dance and instruments, stuff like that. If I don't think I was always a spooky kid, but like if I really sank into horror when I was like 5 or 6 years old and decided to make my life all about that,
Right.
like, I wonder what kind of stuff you could do at a very young age in the horror realm.
I mean, it depends, because being interested in something isn't the same as like what you could do in it. You could just be a major enthusiast, and that's just your
That's
thing.
true.
Yeah,
That's true. I guess you're right about that.
Yeah.
But all this stuff is usually kept away from you. You're
Right.
not allowed to see R-rated movies. You're not allowed
Right.
to see scary stuff.
yeah,
There are PG-13 horror movies.
yeah. There are.
Like Krampus last week was PG-13.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any G horror movies? Can you make a horror movie for a child?
I mean, I guess I'm trying to think. Like the Addams Family, is that G maybe or PG?
Definitely PG-13. Definitely.
No. The cartoony thing that just came out.
I forgot there was a new one.
Yeah.
I would assume that's
I bet it's like
PG.
PG. And most parents let their kids see PG.
You know what? You're
at
right.
any age. There are things like that, like Monsters Inc. Not horror, but
Not horror,
it's
but there's
monstery.
monsters.
A lot of old Disney movies that we watched were super scary and messed up,
They had
like
scary
Snow
stuff.
White.
Yeah, you're right.
And like I read Edgar Allan Poe stuff when I was like a kid.
True. And
So I
Hotel
think they're-
Transylvania with Adam Sandler.
I think there are inroads.
Okay.
When you're a little kid.
Okay, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Also,
yeah, put those.
monsters are a race on Sesame Street.
Oh,
It took me a long time to realize that, but like Oscar the Grouch is a monster.
right.
Although Elmo is a monster. Any of the furry
Yeah.
Muppets are monsters. They're
Yeah.
different from Kermit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's true.
they're their own species.
Yeah.
From a certain. I think race is probably more accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. Interesting.
So there's some monster introduction.
Yeah, there's some stuff. Okay, so this next one is from Sarah, and she says, one day when I was a kid, I was sitting on my bed watching TV when I heard someone walking through the hallway right outside my room. I assumed it was my mom since we were the only 2 people in the house that day. The footsteps suddenly stopped right outside my room, paused for a moment, then walked inside. Since I thought it was my mom, I didn't think anything of it or even look away from the TV. I think I said, "Hi, Mom," or something like that, only to get no response. Then they walked further into my bedroom and climbed onto my bed.
Ugh.
I can clearly remember the weight of a full-grown person sitting very close behind me on the mattress. Still thinking it was my mom, I started talking about the show I was watching, still not taking my eyes off of the TV. They never responded, but instead began playing softly with my hair and then kissed me on the top of my head.
Ugh.
We sat for a few moments in silence with me watching TV while they played with my hair. Eventually, I wanted to get my mom's attention, so I turned around to face her. But when I turned around, I was shocked to find nobody was there. Meh. This is a tough one.
That is a tough one. My go-to is like weird predator ghost.
Yeah.
What if it's like a grandma?
I'm about to say, yeah, maybe she wasn't scared until she turned around. Like she felt comfortable with this presence around her.
Right.
Her spidey senses weren't going off and telling her it was dangerous.
It's just scary
So
to
maybe
find out that
right.
there's no one that you can see there.
Right. So maybe it was kind of a comforting presence.
What if it's
you
like
know?
your great
or like
great-
intended to be comforting.
Right. What if it's like your great grandma?
Right.
Like
yep.
some ancestor you never would have met before who's just checking out to see how their descendants are doing.
Yeah.
And like, oh, I could spend some time with you.
Yeah. It could be. So Sarah said, I wanted to scream, but I was so terrified that I couldn't speak. I eventually sprinted from the room to try to find where my mom was and see if she was okay. It turned out she was in the kitchen washing dishes. She seemed to have been there for the entire afternoon and hadn't been upstairs at all. I never told her that this happened until several years later. She's convinced it was a friendly ghost, like we were saying, maybe a deceased relative coming to say hello.
Yeah.
However, I still sleep in that room and get a little spooked thinking about it. I don't blame ya.
Oh, that's certainly spooky. Yeah, there's there's an intimacy to it.
Yeah.
That is unusual.
Yes.
And I think one of the understated things about that story is the idea of hearing the footsteps start to walk past the room and then change their mind.
Yeah.
You know what?
Or
I'll come
realize
in.
that someone's in there.
Well, yeah, yes,
like,
but yeah, being like,
oh, actually, like I was
huh.
just going to wander the hallways kind of aimlessly, but
how about
Sarah's
you?
in there.
Yeah, I'll come sit with you.
Yeah.
That reminds me of one of my favorite creepypastas ever. Which goes something like this. I was upstairs in my room when I heard my mom come home downstairs and say, "Honey, can you come down and help me with the groceries?" I walked out of my room and started down the hall when suddenly a pair of hands reached out of the bathroom, grabbed me, covering my mouth and slamming the door. It was my mom. She said, "Don't make a sound. I heard it too."
Yeah.
And it's just
really good.
not the person you thought it was.
No.
And then what is it?
No.
You'll never know.
Exactly.
What was that? It's just a mystery. And that's almost the hardest pill to swallow, that you'll never, ever, ever know.
Right.
Yeah.
So this next one is from Andrew, and he sent us that cool Baker Story Hotel from our last listener stories episode. So he said, "I've noticed a theme on the show recently, explaining some ghostly happenings as witness to other timelines, small rips in time. Are we the ghost or them?
Right.
I had an experience a few months ago that may prove the point. We live in a neighborhood 30 miles outside of Phoenix. The homes are spread out among mountain foothills. Neighboring houses are not very close, but in sight. I work from home most of the time, and during a break, I'll step out front for some sun and fresh air. This day, I was on the phone pacing from one side of the driveway to the other. I stepped onto the rocks a few feet off the driveway and was looking to the rear of the house when from behind me, I heard heavy, fast footsteps headed right toward me. It was so fast and so violent, like someone was going to attack me. They ended where I stood, right at my back. I brought up an arm to shield myself as I turned, but no one was there. I was shocked and stunned. If this had been a real attack, I would have been knocked off my feet. It sounded like there were maybe 8 steps. I looked around to see if it could have been an echo from someone walking in another yard, but there was nobody else around. I'm sure most people would have seen the yards out here are made of small rocks about an inch in size. You can't take one step without making a lot of noise. You definitely can't sneak up on anyone. It's very distinctive. Now for a backstory or explanation. 2 weeks before the weird ghost nearly mugging, I found a very old square-cut nail next to the driveway sitting on top of a small area of exposed dirt. This is really strange because the home's 15 years old and all of the lots were leveled and had dirt added, then rock put over that. Of course, I found nails from when the house was built, but nothing like this. I walk right past that area a lot and would have seen the nail. It was like it was left there for me to find. I sent a picture to my brother who's done a lot of home remodeling up in New England, and he told me that he'd seen thousands of them, and that was at least 130 years old. He thought there might have been a homestead where ours now sits. It's possible there was water nearby back in the day. 130 years ago, this was the middle of nowhere. In some ways, it still is. So did a rancher from the past see a strange dude in a sleeveless shirt and shorts standing in his house or out in the farmyard and try to take me down? It sure felt like it. We'll never know what the explanation really is, but it's strange that all these events were tied together.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I do like that theory that he blinked into existence 130 years ago, and somebody saw somebody who was dressed like weirdly inappropriately for that time.
Right, and on his property.
Yep.
So he's going to run up on him.
What the hell are you doing here?
Yeah.
Get off my property. And then everything righted itself.
Exactly, just in that blink.
Yes.
Good timing for that blink.
Excellent timing for the
tackled.
blink. It's like when Doc Emmett Brown was first testing the DeLorean, and he made it drive at him and Marty.
That's right.
And then it finally shifted through time right before it would have hit them.
Beautiful timing.
You know the fan theory about that his goal was to, if his invention didn't work, kill himself.
No, I've never heard that.
If that DeLorean didn't work, he and Marty would be flattened. So the theory is this was, he's going to make it or bust. Right. It either works or we're toast.
Would Marty have been flattened?
I guess Marty's out too. I don't know why Doc felt like he had to silence him.
Yeah. Well, no, what would Marty be flattened? Why?
He was standing in the way. The tire tracks went through their legs.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. I was getting mixed up about what thing. Okay, gotcha.
Also, this is very weird, but it plays off the theory of ghosts really being crosses with other living people, just
Yeah.
in different dimensions or different times or whatever. So I've been playing a lot of the game Grand Theft Auto Online. It is very fun. It's very addictive. I am Will Rogers 2000 on PC. Please add me. I need help. I'm not very good at it. But part of the way the game functions is that you are all, when you load the game, you're dropped into a city. It's based off of Los Angeles.
Okay.
So you're dropped onto Los Angeles with, say, 20 other people who are also playing the game. And you can design your own character to look however you want them to look. And you can run into other players. You can do your own thing.
Yeah.
But other players will sometimes help you. Sometimes they'll get in the way. And one of the new things that I'm learning about the game is you can buy property. But, you know, it's a video game. You can't make every single building something that players can own.
Right.
So there are certain buildings that you can buy. And let's say I just bought an arcade, like a video game arcade. So did a bunch of other people. We all own the same building.
Okay.
But when you walk up to it to enter it, the game asks you, do you want to enter your arcade?
Oh,
or do you want to enter one
weird.
of the arcades owned by other people that
Yeah.
are also in that building?
Yeah, it's like you're going into their dimension.
It's like you're going into their dimension. And maybe that's the way everything is.
Maybe.
I kind of do believe in, or at least I find it to be fun, that there could be infinite dimensions. That, you know, there's a dimension where we never started this show. There's a dimension where we started this show when we were 12. There's a dimension where you and I are recording an episode right now, and we're sitting in this house at this table just talking about a different topic.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm sitting in a chair where another version of me is also sitting in it somewhere.
Yeah.
And maybe sometimes we cross over into each other's lives. Maybe I came home and opened the curtains in my bedroom.
Right.
But that was me from another dimension who
Right.
did that.
But there's some sort of skip over somehow.
But then Allie from our dimension saw it and asked me if I did it, and I didn't. Another version of me did.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Like maybe there are a bunch of us living in this house.
I like thinking about that too. I sometimes think of it as like whether it's ghosts. I guess I mostly think of it in terms of like different kinds of ghosts or beings or aliens or any sort of like paranormal stuff. I sometimes think about the idea that like they're basically dimensions, but like, you know, they don't use them anymore, but those transparent sheets of paper that you would put on this projector and project onto the wall in school or whatever.
Yes.
But actually, you don't even need to know that. Let's just say a clear sheet or something.
Yeah, clear cellophane.
Yeah, clear cellophane. There is our reality on one piece of clear cellophane, and there's another clear piece of cellophane on top of it that has another reality, and maybe that reality has ghosts and stuff in it. There's another one that has aliens. All these things are on top of each other. So if you look down from the top, they're all overlapping, and they're kind of all part of one picture, but you can separate them out, and they're their own things.
Yes, I like that.
You know?
I like that. Also, if you're looking down on all those layers, if you took a needle and you poked a hole through
and then
all of them,
turned.
they could all slip into each other.
Yeah.
All the ink from each of those individual sheets
Yes.
could contaminate the next layer down.
Right, but even just them being on top of the other layer, by virtue of that, it contaminates it because you're seeing this
that's
layer's
true.
activity or this layer's drawing and the other layer as though they're laying on top of each other.
Yeah, you're
which they
right.
are. But I mean, if they were like literally on the same sheet of paper.
Sure. I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's cool, right? So now we will tell Caitlin's story. She says, my personal stories are mostly from one of my college boyfriends. I grew up in Washington State and moved to Utah for school, but he was a native and spent a lot of his teenage years in the mountains for Boy Scouts. I've always loved spooky stories, so when I learned about the legends surrounding American Fork Canyon, I begged him to take me up there. So she also sent me, and I didn't include in this because this will be stuff for like other shows' actual topics.
Okay.
She sent me kind of like a list of like, this is a legend here, this is a legend here, this is a legend here. So we'll get into that, and she's going to mention one of those in here. That's why I'm even saying that.
Sure.
And so just take this thing I'm about to say as fact just within this story. You're going to be like, what?
And then
But
someday
we'll elaborate on it
expand
some,
on it.
right?
Okay.
Exactly. So she said, we set off one night to try to find the campground where you can summon the ghost hearse.
Oh, yeah.
The road out there is dark and isolated, and as we entered the canyon, he started getting very agitated and wanted to turn around. The woods and mountains are dense and the roads are narrow, and at night especially, it can feel like you've dropped off into complete wilderness. I guess it got to him. I was really disappointed and kind of teased him about being afraid, so he told me about a couple of his personal experiences with the canyon. Apparently, when he was in high school, he and his friends tried to summon the ghost hearse. When they were finishing off their second circle and about to make the third, a tree branch crashed down in front of their car and a bat flew up and hit the windshield. Oh. They were very freaked out and left right away.
Of all animals to
I know,
a bat is like...
It's like the mascot of scary stuff.
The mascot of horror.
Yes.
Yeah.
Another time, he and one of his friends in the scout program took a winter camping trip in the canyon to fulfill a badge requirement for camping in the snow. They hiked up a ridge, found a spot, and started setting up camp. Then out of nowhere, a man appeared from the trees. He was much older, had a white grizzled beard, and only wore long johns despite the snow and the cold. The man told them angrily that this was his land and they had to leave. Ooh. The canyon is public land, but they were spooked and hiked off to find a new spot. They set up camp, had a fire, cooked dinner, and went to bed. Apparently, sometime in the night, they woke up to hear someone outside their tent. There was rustling and breathing and laughter, but they remembered the old man and were too afraid to leave the tent. In the morning, there were no footprints in the snow. That story has always spooked me, but I never thought to do any research around it. I love ghost stories, but I'm really more of a skeptic and always figured they'd just run into a cranky old man in the mountains. When I saw your post for stories, though, I decided to Google the canyon and brush up on my facts. Insanely, I found this. Apparently, campers have reported seeing this hermit and hearing the rustling outside their camps at night. He's said to be the ghost of a hermit who lived in the canyon and wouldn't leave when the local mining camp he worked at closed.
Oh.
It gave me the chills. I can't believe this crazy story a college boyfriend told me 10 years ago was something multiple people have experienced. I'm still a skeptic, but it's so fun to think about the possibilities.
Fun is the right word.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And really, the canyon can be pretty spooky. It's super beautiful, but it's also very eerie. I've had sleep paralysis twice in my life, and once while I was camping with some friends in the canyon. I woke up unable to breathe and saw this shrunken, wrinkled goblin crouching at the end of my sleeping bag. Oh, no. It was horrifying.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. That's all I...
Shrunken... You know, that was like my main nightmare when I was a kid was Rumpelstiltskin.
Yes.
You could argue is a shrunken, wrinkled goblin. Schrunkle Goblin? So you said?
Schrunkle Goblin.
Oh, instead of Rumpelstiltskin, Schrunkle Goblin.
Schrunkle Goblin. Our very own monster mascot.
That's right, the Schrunkle Goblin.
The Schrunkle Goblin.
God.
Yeah, if I had sleep paralysis and I woke up and there was a goblin, like, what? What are you? Get out of here. You?
I'll just start crying.
No.
If the Schrunkle Goblin was our mascot, they'd really be taking something and like owning it for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Converting it into a positive thing.
Right, exactly.
The Schrunkle Goblin.
To get strength from.
Yes.
That's an awesome story. Thank you. And I'm very excited for us to explore that ghost hearse.
Oh, I'm so excited about the ghost hearse. Absolutely. By the way, having sleep paralysis and waking up and seeing a shrunken goblin is famous artwork. I don't know the name of the art piece, but I've used it several times for the show when we've talked about things like the Boogeyman.
Yeah.
It is artwork of, I believe, a sleeping woman with kind of a gargoyle looking thing on her chest, which I think is just a depiction of sleep paralysis, the feeling that you're being weighed down by something. And so this was how they depicted it, a little goblin creature on your chest.
Yeah.
And that seems to be what they actually saw in that story.
Right.
Crazy.
So weird. I mean, maybe it's kind of like a cousin of the old hag that's very common for people to experience in sleep paralysis.
That's right,
maybe there's like the old hag and there's like a shrunken goblin that are common or something. I don't know, but it sounds so scary.
Comes the Schrunkle.
Yes. Here come the Schrunkle.
Grusch von Schrunkle.
So our final story of the night is going to be Kelly's follow-up story that she mentioned when you were reading earlier about the ghost lights that she and her family saw. She ended up deciding that she did want to send it in, and let's end with this.
Okay,
it's good.
Let's do it.
So she starts off with, just to be completely transparent, I've written a YA fiction series which I loosely based on this legend from my hometown. So that's why I have a bit of knowledge about the road's history. And then I followed up and said, can you tell me what it is? Because people want to know.
Exactly.
She said, it's called the Lightkeeper series. It's a YA ghost tale.
Cool.
3 books are out now in this series so far, and the 4th is in the works. And she said she also wrote, in case people are interested in this kind of stuff, the Immortal Huntress series for the Seven Sons universe. It's urban fantasy, and she's working on the 6th book in that series, and you can find that all on Amazon.
Damn, well done.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so Kelly says, there is a ghost light that appears on Bragg Road in Saratoga, Texas, which used to be a 10-mile branch off of the Santa Fe Railroad. The tracks were taken up years ago. What remains of the road is 8 miles long. The other 2 miles of one end was turned into part of a highway extension decades ago, which still runs in line with the Ghost Road before it makes a sharp curve. The remainder of Bragg Road has been turned into a scenic drive with little info stations and billboards that give facts about the actual railroad town which used to exist there. That's cool. So she says, I need to explain that the road, being originally built as a railroad extension, is perfectly straight and fairly flat and level, and this is supposed to be the reason that many who enter the road from one end, the end opposite of the newer highway part, will most surely see a ghostly light in the distance. What is happening is in fact car lights, and that's because the lights are so far away they appear as one light, or so I've been told. I've personally seen this particular optical illusion many times. While it's still a cool thing to see, knowing all of this really left me skeptical each time I saw it happen. But then something happened to me and my family, something that still puzzles me to this day. I saw the real ghost light.
Oh.
Now, I myself became obsessed with the road when I was in my late teens, and we go out there to drive the road and look for the light while hanging out and wasting gas. Many people in my hometown have stories, some really wild and crazy. And I've heard tales my entire life about the light coming up on people's hoods and leaving dark spots on their windshields, shooting straight up into the air, and even tales of it coming into the car with people. So years ago, when I decided to write a book just to see if I could, I wanted to set it out there in the woods and have some fun with the legend. And during that time when I was dabbling with the story, I would have my husband drive me out to the road in the Jeep with our 2 sons, and I'd try to get a feel for what it would be like to live out there since it's where I put my main character's house. I considered it a world-building exercise of sorts. I was looking for inspiration, but the kids loved any excuse to go out there. Anyway, this one night we rode out and we kept seeing the light that I usually see, and the boys were really into it. It was a lot of fun. Well, at one point we'd see this different, brighter light right in the middle of the road, and it looked closer than normal. I kept waiting for it to disappear, which is typical for car lights, but it didn't. It hovered there very low to the ground, and I said, this has to be an aluminum can or something in the road shining from the headlights. The boys agreed. My oldest said, we're going to get closer and it'll say Sprite or 7-Up. My youngest then says, no, it's going to be root beer. That's my favorite. So this gets us started guessing sodas.
This is really cute.
It's really sweet.
It's very sweet. It's very cute. I love the idea of a family being this fun and engaging in, like, writing is such
they're all coming around this story.
Yeah, but not even just that. Like, writing is usually, for me at least, it's like such a solitary process. I'm always alone.
Yeah.
But I love the idea of just being like, let's all go get in the car and we'll find inspiration. We'll go explore that spooky thing together. That's so lovely.
Yeah.
And man, congratulations on having that. That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's really sweet. So the entire time we're having this discussion, we're creeping closer and closer, and it's still there, getting brighter and brighter. And suddenly, this light we're all focused on shoots straight up into the air, and I lean forward to watch it. It went high, well out of the Jeep's headlight range, where it was still glowing just as bright. It got well above the trees and then just burned out, like a light bulb that has suddenly just popped. After a few gasps and a moment of silence, I think that we were all dumbstruck with what had happened, and I asked, did you all see that? Then began a long conversation of us trying to figure out what it could have been. And I'm a pretty skeptical person. I like to debunk and find science to explain away everything, but I could not logically explain this away. I still to this day have no idea what I saw. Was it paranormal? Yes, I'd certainly say that it was above the normal. I guess I could also label it a UFO since it was flying and unidentified. However, I never really have called it that. It's an experience that my family will never forget for sure, but it has really made me see things in different ways and opened my mind up to possibilities I hadn't believed possible before. It also validated a few of the stories I'd heard as a kid. When people would swear to me that they'd seen things just like that, and these were adults, friends and their parents, whoever, I'd take it all with a grain of salt. I know that others will do the same with my experience, and that's fine, but I'm certain that there's more going on out on Bragg Road here in Southeast Texas than I'm supposed to understand. Is it swamp gas? Ball lightning? I have no idea, but it's real.
Wow. Yeah, it is funny because the primary thing that you do when you experience something or hear about some sort of a phenomenon is go like, well,
yeah, what could it be?
Yes,
like,
there are
what
so
could
many
explain this?
There's so many unusual chemical processes that happen. We've talked about a bunch on this show. So I completely relate to the point of view of like, all right,
yeah, let's figure out like what the reason for this
let's
is.
think rationally.
Yeah.
Let's buckle down. But you're not really going to get a decent answer unless, you know, like you need, at least I would need scientists to come out and be like, yeah, it turns out that there's a sewer main and the gas from that ignites in the air. And because otherwise I'm never going to be able to figure it out alone.
No, you could never know, but it's totally reasonable that would be your reaction. Be like, okay, so what is it? Even when the perfumey smells I experienced, like even as casual as that, I was like, what is this smell I'm smelling? I started smelling around all over the place and trying to find the source of it. Like that's just kind of a natural reaction for people who have at least even a little bit of a skeptical or rational side.
Sure.
So I can totally see why she would be looking for that thing. And I also appreciate that she couldn't find the reason for that. So she leaves the door open for the possibility, which is also rational in a way.
Yes, absolutely.
That it's paranormal. She looked for other things. She can't find any other explanation. And it's true. Like paranormal means above the normal. It's out of the normal. And it doesn't always have to be the hugest, farthest away side of the normal. It could just be hovering above the normal.
Yes.
And so who knows what that is?
Yeah, I love it. I love that the experience was shared with her family.
I know. The whole thing is really sweet.
That way you don't even end up going like, no one's going to believe me. Four people. Four people will believe it.
Yeah, totally.
You know, and that's really all that matters. It's yours.
Yeah.
That's your story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Boy,
but I believe
very
it.
Cool. Yeah. Hey, thank you all so much for sending in your stories.
Yeah, this was awesome. I really, really loved reading these. So
I love them. They're fascinating. They make me envious. In a way.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why I like the weird smell that's come around. So I'm like, maybe there's something a little happening. I like it.
Sure.
You know?
I like the idea that there are
things
things yet to discover.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, it's awesome.
And hearing all of these stories about things, whether or not they were tricks of the light or, you know, I don't know, flukes of perception, dreams, whatever, they are a step outside the normal and the mundane.
Right.
And they're just
it makes life fun.
Yes.
I love this kind of stuff.
I was thinking just the other day that like once you turn 25 and you can rent a car, there are no more age gated things anymore. There's nothing left to look forward to.
AARP.
Okay,
Senior
you're right about
discounts?
that. But I came up with something, Kristen.
Ooh, what?
I think, now hear me out. I think you should not be allowed to eat grapes until you are like 80 years old.
What the hell are you talking about?
And that way you get to look forward all your life being like, I wonder what they taste like.
What if you don't like grapes that much? Or I guess you wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know. You wouldn't know because the government makes you get a special ID when you turn 80 so you can finally buy them. And they're sold at a special store that doesn't allow anyone other than 80 in. Oh, it doesn't have to be grapes. It's anything. Honeydew. Does that make you happier?
No, that's worse.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter what it is. Just having some food that arbitrarily people who are not 80 years old are not allowed to have.
No, but then what if you don't make it to 80?
Too bad.
No fair.
Too bad.
Fair.
Too bad. You lose.
Nope.
All those grapes are mine. Anyway. That's really neither here nor there. Happy New Year.
On that note,
All right, everybody, that does it.
Talk about the strange and unexplained.
That does it for Guide to the Unknown in the year 2019.
That's right.
Thank you all so much for hanging out with us.
Yes.
We hope that you had fun. Please continue to send in your stories.
Yes.
You can send them.
We'll do these episodes whenever we have enough stories to do them. So send them in, and then once we gather the bunch, we'll do the stories. It doesn't have to be the end of the year.
Yes, you can send your stories to gttupod@gmail.com.
Yep.
Please also follow at gttupod on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to keep up with spooky news throughout the week.
Yep.
You can follow our secret group. Join the secret group by going to facebook.com/groups/gttupod. Back us on patreon.com/gttupod. If you become another World Warrior starting at $4, you get access to tons of bonus material that we've already got on there and anything new we add in the future. And I think beyond that, you can follow us.
That's right. I'm at Chillin' Kristen on Instagram and Twitter.
And I am the Myth Traveler. So thank you all so much for hanging out with us. We hope that you have a great New Year's. We'll see you in 2020.
That's right.
Which is bizarre.
I know.
Entering the future.
2020.
Pretty soon we're all going to have to start wearing those silver suits.
I know. I can't believe it hasn't happened yet.
I know. Where are those?
It's a little disappointing.
Yeah. What the hell's going on? We got to fix that.
Yeah.
We're going to
We'll
fix
it.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next year. But until that time comes, we must travel.
Into 2020, shoot we. In those silver suits, perhaps.